As you open up your workbook, you'll see that we have a couple of tabs at the bottom here, all the use cases that we'll go through today. And on the right here, you'll notice that something called a document viewer has popped up. This is how we can easily view our documentation that we have imported into Data Snipper. And I've already gone ahead and imported some documents into this workbook. So at the top here, we can click on the Data Snipper ribbon. And on the far left side in the import section, we can click on the Organize button. Here we can see all of the documents that we have imported into this workbook, and there is one more document that we need to pull in before we get started today. So to practice doing that, in the bottom left corner here, we can click Import Documents. In my training materials, you'll see that we have a AGM support folder. And what I can do is I can actually just drag and drop that folder into this gray area here of the organizer. What that will do is just replicate that folder structure for me right into my document organizer. Know that pretty much every file type is compatible with Data Snipper, so whether it be other Excel workbooks with multiple tabs, screenshots, PDF, Word documents, all of these document types can be imported into Data Snipper, and they will be automatically converted to PDF upon import. Before we get started here, we always want to check this status column. If we see that documents say OCR, that means they are good to go. And OCR stands for optical character recognition. So this is how Data Snipper is able to read text from poorly scanned documents. If we have any handwritten forms or things like that, it will help us read all of that information. If the document says contains text, we can try to snip from it. And if you do have errors extracting information, you can always come back here, select those documents, and click OCR in the top right corner. If the status says no text, you can always, off the bat, immediately check that document and then run OCR. But as you can see here, my documents are good to go, so we'll go ahead and close out of the organizer. On the right side here, you can see that the document we just imported has popped up. This is a fake company called Tangerine & Co. And basically, we are trying to review financials for this fictional company that's in our portfolio and pull out some numbers into this tab here, AGM support. So the concepts that we're going to learn in this use case don't just apply to this type of review, but valuation reviews, if you have growth equity, valuation models, any case where you have an Excel tab and you're looking across multiple documents and pulling at numbers and running formulas, you can apply this Basic Snips use case to these types of situations. So in my Data Snipper ribbon here in the snip section, I'm going to go ahead and click on the text snip. What I can do now is I can click into the cell where I want that snip to go, and I can scroll through this document and see that I want to pull information from page 3 here. So I can look here and see that I want to pull this 23.1 figure here. So what I can do is left click and drag over that number. When I left click and drag over that number to create a snip, you'll see that that information is extracted into my workbook. And you'll also see that I am creating a cross-reference. So if I go back into this workbook, or if I send this to someone, they click into the cell, they're going to see this cross-reference pop up on the right here in the document viewer. I'll go ahead and click into cell D5 next. I need to find this ARR for 2024, the expected amount. That is this 20.1 here again. So I can drag over that number and again see that information extracted into my workbook. We'll practice with a few more lines here. Next, I'm looking for cash EBITDA. So I can scroll down to page 4 here. I can see this row here for cash EBITDA. And for 2023 actual, I see this 5,520. Now, if I hover over this number, you'll see that underline appears. When you see that underline, you can actually just right click on that and you'll see that we have the ability to create a snip this way as well. So if I click create snip, it's going to snip that negative 5,520 for me. Now, when we create a snip, we have the ability to edit it however we'd like. So if I want to keep this in the same format as the previous numbers, what I can do here is just edit this to what I want it to be. So if I want this to be negative 5.5, I can do so here and notice that I'm still retaining the cross-referencing. So we can edit the contents of the cell, we can change the color of it, wrap the text, change the font. All of that can be done while maintaining that cross-referencing. What I'll do now is, again, if I hover over 1195 in my document viewer, again, I can right-click on this. I can click Create Snip. And notice that when I created that snip, I didn't choose the cell for the snip to go into. So by default, if you just snip, it will snip into the next open cell to the right. Again, as you can see here, we can modify this if we want it to match. I can say 1.2. Next, we're looking for gross retention. So I can continue scrolling down through this report. I can see here, I want to pull this gross retention. First thing I want to do is pull the actual amount from FY23. So again, can click into cell C7. And when I find that number, I can go ahead and snip that information. I also want to find the expected percentage for 24. So again, this 98.3 can pull it out. Now, another way that we can use Data Snipper is the search and snip functionality. So for example, if I clicked on net retention here, you would see that when I click into the cell, the contents of that cell automatically populate into the search bar of my document viewer. If I click on the magnifying glass here, I can see everywhere that net retention has popped up. So if you quickly want to search through multiple documents at once to find a specific piece of information, the search feature is really powerful for that. Let's take it a step further. Let's say I know that I want to pull out the percentage 97.6 here. What I can do is I can click into cell C8. That's where I want my snip to be placed. And then I can click into my search bar up top here in the document viewer. I can type 97.6. And when I click on the magnifying glass, again, we can see that it is showing us everywhere in this document that it has found 97.6, and it's going to highlight that for us in the document. If I find the exact number I want to pull out here, what I can do is I can click on the snip button next to that reference, and you'll see that it automatically snips that information into my workbook. So I can scroll through here and see that this number as well at the end, I want to pull for 2024. Again, if I click on snip, you'll see that it snips that number for me, and we have the cross references to it. So what we can also do once we're done snipping this information onto our workbook is that we also have the ability to copy and paste these snips into other tabs. So you'll see at the bottom of my workbook, I have an AGM data request tab. Let's say I've pulled this information out, but I also need to populate it into other tabs. What I can do is I can copy and paste these snips and retain that cross-referencing. So in my AGM support basic snips tab, I can click into cell D5. I can do Control C, go into my AGM data request tab, click into the cell I wanted to go into, in this case, K6, and paste that snip there. Go back to my Basic Snips tab. I also want to pull this 1.2, so I can go ahead and copy and paste that. Oops, I actually put these in the 2023 column, but you get the point. Notice here that when you copy and paste snips, they do paste into the original extraction. So if you do want to edit it, you can always edit it again. And you can also see here that these cells do still function as regular Excel cells. So these numbers can still be used in formulas. You'll see we have this margin and formula calculating it. So you can apply all of that to these snip cells still the way you normally would, just with the added benefit of the cross-referencing. I'll also show another feature that's really popular with customers in this space, and that is table snip. So there may be times where you are getting information in PDFs like this, and you just want to quickly pull out the tabular data to be able to run formulas on it, but it's going to be really messy to copy and paste it and have to edit it to get it into a usable format. Instead, what we can do is in the data snipper ribbon here in the snip section, you can click on table snip. And then you can click into the cell where you want that table snip to start. Now what you can do is you can just left click and drag over that tabular data you want to extract, and you'll see that it extracts that data really cleanly into the workbook for us. We also have the ability to edit this table in real time with our table snip on the right. So if I wanted to merge columns together here, I could use this minus sign to delete a column, and you would see that updates in real time in my workbook. I can use the plus sign here to add it back in. And I can also use this slider in the middle to easily adjust where these columns break. In the top right corner here, if I click on the three dots, I can also edit my rows the exact same way. So again, I could use a minus sign to delete a row, plus sign to add a row back in, and use this slider to adjust where the rows break. So that's one method for pulling in a table snip. Another way that we can use table snip is with this feature called snip all tables. So what I can do is I can click into a cell where I want those table snips to start. And what snip all tables is doing is it's going through the document you have open in your document viewer, and it is identifying any tables in there. So if you want to pull out all the tables in a report, with one click of a button, you can click snip all tables, and you'll see that it cleanly pulls out those tables for us. What we'll have is one purple table snip cross-reference that we can click into to bring us to the right page. Notice that we also have a column that includes the page number that this table snip is coming from. And also, if Data Snipper has identified any headers, those headers are automatically bolded for us. So again, if you're receiving this data from outside sources and you just want to quickly pull it in so you can start manipulating it, Table Snip is a great way to pull that information in. So that covers this use case, really applicable to a lot of deals and valuation teams, a lot of applicability to just quickly pull in those numbers and have this cross-referencing. So as a reviewer, when you're going through this, you don't have to go back and forth or try to map it to screenshots you've added to that workbook. Very easy to do. We also have the ability to tie multiple snips to one cell reference. So for example, if I wanted to put another cross-reference into this cell L6, I could click into the text snip here, hold down the control key, and snip another number. And you would see here that when I do that, a little window appears in the bottom right corner. It's going to show me the document, the page, all this information is coming from, but still tied to that one cell. And I can manipulate this however I want. If I still just want this to say 1.2, I can. But when I click into the cell, I can still see both points that we're referencing here.